To the CNR meeting for May. Call for apologies. Are there any apologies, please?
Hello.
Phil Redmond. Anybody else? Thank you. We do those. We do. So move from the chair. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Any conflicts of interest that we need to document? No, appears to be none. Confirmation of minutes. Is everybody happy with those? And I'll move from the chair that confirmation of minutes. Is anybody happy to thank you, Robbie, for seconding those? All those in favour, please say aye. Any matters arising from those minutes, please? I'll just raise one, and that relates to the natural burials. Chris, are you able to give us an update in terms of when we're expecting to have a report back from the staff with regard to natural burials, please?
Yeah, I think the next CNR report we should have something back. So we're just doing the spatial work at the moment to look at what cemeteries have the appropriate space requirements long term and what the rules and regulations are. So the next CNR meeting we should have something back which gives a bit of a high level overview of what's possible in the district.
That's wonderful. Thanks for that, Chris. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to raise? Appears to be nothing, right? We'll now move on to deputations. We've got Ruby and Laura. Come on forward, please. Tessa, are you wanting to join them, or you're happy to stay there, or what? Anybody else happy?
I would love to join them, but they're very painful.
Lovely. Welcome, Ruby. Welcome, Laura.
Yeah. So, kia ora everyone, thank you so much for having us here. We're just here to give a bit of an update on kind of youth-related things happening in the Waimakariri district and also in the context of it being Youth Week this week. So, the next slide. So the Waimakariri Youth Council recently held their annual Youth Takeover Survey, so that's part of the wider youth survey that the Youth Voice Canterbury Network holds each year, just to collect some data about what youth think are most important issues and topics happening for them. So if we go to the next slide, there's some of the key kind of findings from this year's data. So this is just the Waimakariri specific data. So on the left-hand side there, you can see a graph about what events young people are most likely to attend, and the top three from there were youth-friendly events, extracurricular opportunities and workshops, and then also cultural events. And then on the right side there is a graph showing what issues are most important to youth. So these are just the top six that came. There are a number more that they could choose from. So the top six were wellbeing and mental health, healthcare, education, racism, climate change, and cost of living. So next slide. Yeah, so this is the Together We Lead Leadership Breakfast. So I ran one of these in April as part of the Youth Development Grant funding, in addition to the 2 leadership breakfasts that I ran last year with the same funding. And I have another one coming up in August, middle of August. So the next slide just have a few kind of key highlights. So over the last 3 breakfasts, around 42 youth have been involved in those breakfasts and attended. 100% of the youth and the panellists found the breakfast valuable and useful. And it just kind of encouraged the connections between the young people themselves and also with the panellists. So each panellist would sit down at a table during breakfast, have a chat with the youth, and get to discuss some of the stuff that might have come up during the panel, come up with some questions. So yeah, 4th breakfast to be held in August. So yeah. Next slide is, so Youth Week is happening this week, and as I'm sure you all know, there's many events happening throughout the district to celebrate Youth Week. So in Rangiora there is a high school musical event, there's some learner licensing classes happening, a DIY home spa and a sunset yoga event happening in Dudley Park. And then in Kaipoi there's also another DIY home spa and a skate jam, and then in Oxford there's also a skate jam happening there. So yeah, some very exciting events happening. And then yeah, this is just kind of tying together, so the Youth Action Plan, I'm on the Youth Action Plan Review Committee. So yeah, there's part of that committee, there's various community stakeholders and young people from different high schools and organisations. And the pre-consultation early engagement has just opened, and that will be closing on July 13th. And so part of that is Lauren and Lexi will be attending many different community events and spaces to get some of that feedback and the survey filled out, and also working alongside schools to get their students to fill it out. Any questions from you?
Lauren, would you like to add anything to?
Yeah, no, I'm just here to support Ruby really, but I can give a little bit more light on what we're doing with the Youth Action Plan right now. So as she mentioned, our early engagement survey opened up on Sunday, ideally for the skate jam in Kaipoi that was postponed, so that will be now happening on June 8th. But we've also been engaging with a lot of local schools to try to get like the entire school to fill it out, to really get them bought in. So far we have a handful confirmed. So Kaipoi High has agreed to get their whole school to do it. West Ayrton for their year 7 and 8s, Kaipoi Borough School, and Karenga Mai. We're also meeting with a bunch of other principals over the next few weeks, so we're really hopeful to get that high school engagement. And then like you mentioned, we're planning on going to a lot of different community events and kind of trying to find pockets where people are already going to be that we can access. So yeah.
Can you explain what a DIY spa is? Because I was looking, because one's at the Kaipoi Library, and I was thinking, are they going to get some saunas or spas or massage therapists? And I was trying to work out what on earth a DIY spa was. Can you please explain that?
Absolutely. So it's more of a DIY spa, home spa thing that you take back to your own home. Oh, sorry. And then, so it'll be to take back to your own home. So they'll be making, I think, like lip scrubs and bath fizzies and things like that. So
Who's that?
at the libraries, so Rebecca Moreland is running them from the libraries. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. Who has other questions?
I was going to ask the same. It's very good to know. Thank you, Brent.
And in terms of the aim, thanks, Mayor Dan. In terms of the aim of how many participants or how many surveys are you aiming for in terms of getting filled out? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, with the school engagement, we're probably going to get well over 1,000, I would imagine. But really, we're aiming for quality and not just quantity. So we don't necessarily have a quantitative figure in mind, as long as we make sure that we're hitting all of those target groups and getting voices represented from all around the district and kind of, a range of just the diverse youth in the community as well.
And just one final question from me. In terms of youth targeted events, what can you specifically give us an idea as to what is that, a youth targeted event, in one of your slides, one of the first slides? What is that really?
Are you talking about the
That's-
youth takeover survey?
Yes, indeed, yeah. Did they give any specifics?
No, and that's part of probably the downside of that youth takeover survey is it doesn't kind of go deeper into the data, which is hopefully what we're going to get out of the youth strategy review is data like this. So yeah.
Yeah, so that Youth Takeover Survey one is created by Youth Voice Canterbury and then just distributed by the different youth councils. So yeah, we've kind of taken that as a base point to jump off of for the Youth Action Plan survey, and we're definitely going deeper and getting some more specific answers through that. So yeah.
That's wonderful, all right. Is anybody going to be attending any of the events?
Yes.
Yes? Excellent. What, Friday or something, isn't it? At Dudley Park? Is that right? Dudley Park?
Yeah, so that's the high school music night. So we have performers from a few different high schools attending, and maybe a potential for a karaoke night at the end of it as well. So yeah.
Right, we'll look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much for coming.
Just to acknowledge the work that you've all put into it, and did pop down to go to the skate jam on Sunday. I missed the message on the way down, but the weather was determining it. But there's a lot of effort gone into this. And Ruby in particular, the breakfast, leadership breakfasts you put together are amazing, and it's always great to see the engagement with young people that attend. And these are people who don't always necessarily get recognised in leadership, and that was an initiative you came up with, and I think it's truly outstanding. I'm looking forward to Friday night. Unfortunately, I won't be able to participate in the karaoke. I do genuinely have to leave early, but a young girl stopped me at the over at the bookshop the other day and wanted to know if I was going. So yes, I certainly am. So there's quite a lot of excitement about it. So well done, well done.
Are you able to bring forward Dan Mayer to actually be on the do the karaoke early in the proceedings? Would that be okay, Ruby?
I'm actually happy to deputise Councillor Cairns because he's got a beautiful voice apparently, according to Shirley in the shower.
Exactly. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So 5.1. Welcome to communities. Amy, come on forward. Is this your first time, Amy, that you've presented?
It is. I feel quite special, quite honoured.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. As I said, I feel quite honoured to be able to come for my first presentation at Council. Today, we're just going to be talking about the report that was submitted, which provides an update on our progress towards the development of a welcoming communities plan for the district. As you may be aware, the project has been funded by the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. Its aim is to support communities to ensure that migrants and newcomers are effectively equipped to contribute to the community and apply their skills and spending power to the local economy. You'll note the broad engagement process that has been applied to the attached stocktake report. As we move now to frame this into a draft plan, we are looking to establish a welcoming waimakariri working group. Draft terms of reference for this group are attached. This report seeks the committee's approval for the attached terms of reference. It also seeks the approval for the community team manager to make minor amendments as deemed necessary upon formal establishment of the group. Additionally, we ask that the committee appoints the community development portfolio holder as council representative on the Welcoming Waimakariri Working Group. I'll take this report as read and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for your report. Who has the first question?
I'm happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. I'll just ask a question before going to move. Amy, in terms of, I noticed the attachments, like it was 2018, so we're effectively following in the footsteps of other councils that have already implemented these plans. What's been the outcome of some of those? Have you?
So yes, in fact, in 2017, 9 councils piloted the program, and it's from there that we've gotten the framework or sort of the benchmarking system that we will use to essentially see how welcoming we are. But upon the success of that pilot, we are now joining 34 other councils. So essentially, most of the country are now part of this network. Which one of the great things for us is that there's a support system to share ideas, to provide resources, and perhaps down the line to actually join together for some effective lobbying on issues that we can try and support within the country for settlement processes.
And you've really put a real fine lens on the Waimak, haven't you, in terms of tweaking all of these things? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So although we do have a broad framework to help guide us, the emphasis is on making it our own. And in fact, we've done that as part of refining the research findings down into a bit of a draft plan that hopefully this Welcoming Waimakariri Working Group will help finalise. And we've drawn on some of those elements in the benchmark, but we're making it our own according to the needs of the community.
So, yes, you have a question?
This is just a little one. This is a really awesome program, and I'm really glad that our council has this and that you're doing such a great job with it. The funding from Immigration New Zealand, does that have is that got a finite time frame with it, or is it just ongoing, or?
It has a finite time frame. The funding is to fund the facilitator and development of the program for 3 years. The importance, therefore, of having a strong working group, part of that is to continue to provide advice and to implement some of their actions, but also we have some support within the network to point towards funding applications and other sources of funding.
It's great to know, because this is really important work to make sure that people that come here are able to well integrate into the waimakariri and take advantage of everything that we've got to offer here. So I was very surprised to see. Never mind. I'll check whenever.
I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So, yes, Councillor Ward.
Well, thank you. It's lovely hearing what you're doing. It's really, really great. How do you get the referrals, and how many people or families are you assisting right now? And sort of, how long are you involved with them to nurture them into the community?
I might answer that. So this particular project is designed to develop a plan, a strategic plan. So Amy's role doesn't work directly with migrants in our community, but we do have a part-time community development facilitator who has a focus on migrants and newcomers. The groups that she is working with are identified through things like the English language classes that were established out of that portfolio, through the Global Locals of Waimakariri social group that meets monthly, through things like citizenship ceremonies, through referrals from social service agencies, our work with Citizens Advice Bureau. So Carolyn has spent a fair bit of time with the ear on the ear to the ground, and she's well respected within the migrant communities across the district. So people tend to come to her.
Oh, so the referrals is it by word of mouth?
Yes. So we don't directly offer programs in that area. So the community development roles are designed to make stuff happen so that it can be delivered elsewhere. So for instance, the English language classes are run by Julie Clockley as an independent provider, but through the context that Carolyn might pick up in the various communities that she's working with, people are fed into those, and then in turn they feed to Global Locals of Waimakariri. So the idea is to have things independently and sustainably functioning across the district. Does that make sense?
And based on the number of people that are coming into the waimakariri, you believe that this is a well-worth program? Because I noticed the English classes, they were so well attended. Chinese, French, Indonesian, Turkish, Peruvians, Argentinians, Filipinos, and even Russians are actually the nationalities. So it's going to be worthwhile, the program?
I believe so. I believe that, one of our points in the plan is actually to try and solidify how we find out who is new. Yeah. But we know from the number of citizenship ceremonies, the fact that they're ramping up, that we're looking for bigger spaces, that growth is happening. We've heard that it's a growing district. Essentially, with that growth comes a change in diversity. And so that's a reality. And I think it's the best plan is to put down the infrastructure for increasing growth and increasing diversity, because ultimately a lot of those things that we're putting in can make accessing our services easy for everyone anyway. So I think that our stats, our movements, our internal migration might be different to other centres, but I think we've got a good foundation of being a welcoming district already, and we want to ensure some of those programs continue, and that if there are some gaps that we work with the community group to fill those in.
Great answer, Amy. Will you have enough funding to actually put the programs together, you believe?
I believe that will be something that we work with the group together with knowing where we want to focus on, initially which programs we want to focus on, and then like I said, my role it would be to try and lobby for more funding through some of the sources that have been suggested through Envy and the Welcoming Communities Group.
Yeah, that's Tessa, I'll just add.
Yes, I just want to highlight the growth that has come in particular sectors, especially since the earthquakes, with the expansion of the towns, particularly the likes of the retirement village industry, which is, you know, continuing to blossom, brings a lot of migrant newcomers who of course bring their families with them. We're also looking at the dairy sector, the hospitality sector, and it's really important that as people come into our communities to work, that we support their families as well, so that they're in a position to be able to contribute to the community and also to, as Amy said, to the local economy.
Thank you. So, any other questions? So we've already got a mover in Mayor Dan. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Mellings, would you like to?
Yes, if I may. Firstly, to say that I fully support this program that we are fortunate to receive funding for, and I think the very title actually fits so well with how you are, Amy, as an individual. You couldn't be a more welcoming individual to be there, and I just think, in my observation, the time I've seen this program, just how well you fit in our organisation, but you fully participate in all aspects of it, including mad tries, you name it, I've seen you in all. I also very much value your participation along with Caroline's in our citizenship. And I remember when Caroline approached me about it, I thought it was a perfect fit to come along. So our new citizens, and actually some of them have lived here for a very long time. There was a lady the other day, was well over, I think it was almost 70 years she'd been here, just hadn't quite got round to doing the check, the final bit and the piece. But as she observed to me, she wasn't quite, while she's lived here, there are a number of things that she certainly wasn't aware of that we offer. So we do have great diversity here. We've got a backlog which we suddenly discovered because GIA hadn't told our governance staff. So we've got about 120 odd waiting to be made new citizens. We're going to resolve that shortly with a couple of bumper sessions. But it's great, and when I read through the list every time, there's a great diversity that are coming and choosing Waimakariri to be their home. 72,000 our current population. Tess is right, it's growing and continuing to grow, and with that brings further diversity in the areas that have already been indicated. The question of funding, I think that that's a matter that will need consideration. You know, as we've got a 3-year funding partnership, how that looks, we look forward to hearing where that gets to. I think having a group established as you are recommending here, 100% support, as well as the terms of reference, and also our present portfolio holder being the council's representative, I think makes perfect sense as our link. But if I could just say again, thank you for the role that you're doing and the work that's going on already in the period that we're in. You've already shown the value, I think, of this program, and I certainly would like to see it continue in our district. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dan. The second, Councillor Mellings.
Yes, thank you. I absolutely support everything that the Mayor has just said, but, and I apologise for asking about the F-word funding, because it's such an important project that we want to make sure that it's sustainable, because it's something that, you know, we really want to be able to continue here because it contributes to a cohesive, engaged community. Case in point, I've worked on several farms over the years, and a lot of those people really don't know how to plug into what we've got here. And it's so important to be able to reach out to those people and make sure that they're included in things. And also, just before the first lockdown, I remember talking to a shopkeeper here in Rangira, and they had no idea where to get help, how to get help, what they could and couldn't do. They just didn't have a include, and that was 5 years ago, and now we have you. So thank you for that. I do note that I was quite fascinated by, in your report where you said that there are 27 countries represented. But the top 5 surprised me, because there are a few others that I thought would have been included in there, and some that were in there that I didn't expect. So that was quite fascinating, actually. And I love the fact that, well, I guess it's the second highest reason, but the second highest reason is for our natural environment. I just had to stick that in there, and I absolutely concur. Look, I think you're doing fantastic work. I think that Councillor Cairns will be an outstanding member of your PCD, and I wholeheartedly support what you're doing, and go well.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll just make a comment. One thing I've seen sitting in with the other groups talking about the welcoming communities is, Amy, the amount of heart and soul that you've put into this project has just been absolutely extraordinary. You put a huge amount of effort into it, and yeah, it's certainly showing up in this, so congratulations on all the work that you've actually done. I recall handing out welcome bags to the Beach Grove community in Kaiapoi at one stage, and everybody that I spoke to had not been born in the Waimak. So we do have a lot of people coming to the district which are not born here in New Zealand, and we certainly need a welcome to waimakariri working group so as we can actually develop plans and help people to become more settled in our district. And you've done a great job in terms of putting all this together, so congratulations, you and the team. Right of reply? Again?
Nothing to add, thanks.
Right. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. It's carried. So thank you very much, Tessa. Thank you very much, Amy. Right, we'll move on to 5.2. So we don't have Justine, we've got Duncan. Welcome, Duncan. You're going to give us an update on the renewals program.
I am, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mayor and Councillors. The purpose of this report is just to provide an update on the progress on the current year's program of green space renewals. Justine last presented to this committee in July last year, which is when the program over the next 10 years was confirmed. So the purpose of this report is really to update you on the current year's progress, and also just looking ahead to the projects that are coming up next year as well. This is just on the renewals program, so it doesn't include the other one-off projects that are generally sort of levels of service or growth related. We have had a series of workshops with each of the boards over the last couple of months, so through March, April, where we provided this same update and just put it to the boards as to whether they saw the need for any changes. There were no changes suggested by the boards that came out of that. The only thing was the Audience Safety and Community Board did ask us to look at the toilet block at Waikuku Beach and just questioning whether that potentially need to come forward. So we are shortly going to be consulting with the community on the car park upgrade down at Waikuku Beach, so the question will also be asked within that, and then we'll come back to the committee with the outcomes of that at the board and the committee. So at the moment, I guess the main news in the report, the renewals program, we're forecasting just under a 70% completion by the end of this financial year. So quite where we'd like it to be. We're hoping, and there's actually a table on page 143 of your agenda that shows the projects that are going to carry over from this year into next financial year, so they won't be finished. But we plan to finish those next year, and then the other column there in green shows you the new projects that just start next financial year. Happy to take any questions.
Chris, if I can just add, you'll note that you also receive the wider capital projects report. This report isn't trying to replace that capital report that was there. It is more focused on the actual renewals projects that we have. Those renewal projects have strategies behind them and a lot of data behind them in terms of our asset management information for the end of life of the asset and the condition of the asset. But because of the assets, a lot of the assets in green space, as opposed to the likes of Jared's wider teams, are a little bit more low risk in terms of replacement. If we don't replace a seesaw and it works absolutely fine, then that's okay. If you don't replace something which is underground and it blows, then that is a really big issue. So we've got a little bit of leeway in terms of exactly when we replace things and how that program looks. So this is more a report which we wanted to give the community boards the opportunity to look at the program and say, look, is there an opportunity to say, actually, we don't want you to do that one next year because the pressure from the community is suggesting that that's not the right year to do that one, and we want to allocate that money to something else. The boards have come back and said that they're relatively happy apart from that Waikuku one. But we'll continue to go to them and give them the opportunity to have a look at the program and actually get some ownership of that program. That will, when we come to do the long-term plan again, be done in a lot more collaborative and direct way, where we actually go out and collect and analyse that primary data, which gets fed into those strategies to build those replacement programs again, and we do that each long-term plan cycle. And that goes back to basics of going to the likes of the sports clubs and saying, what facilities do you need? What do your numbers look like? Going back to the toilet strategy, which was done in 2017, 18, and saying, have the trends around how we provide toilets and our levels of service, are they still appropriate, etc. So just a bit of extra context there.
So even to clarify onto that, so it says that issues and options, it says the committee wishes to explore modifications to project timeline. Staff can prepare and submit supplementary reports or memorandums. So if we're to take the case in point, Wood End Sefton, in regards to the Waikuku toilets, they've also requested changing sheds. How do we deal with that? Is that something that the audit and risk deal with, or is it something that we can suggest that because it's effectively a raising of level of standards?
Yeah,
so where does this sit?
Yeah, so that one at the moment, I guess there's a couple of options. Either the budget envelope that we have at the moment gets modified to be able to cater for some of the projects but they want to do in a prioritised way. Mm-hmm. So if I just make that sound a lot easier, they've got money for the car park, but they want to do the toilet. So we either do the toilet and we don't do the car park, or we come back to council and say to council, we need more money. So at the moment, we're going to the community and saying, we've got all these things that you could possibly do in that area. This is the budget that we've got. Can you please let us know what your priority is and what exactly it is that you want down there and where the deficiency is? Once we get that information, we'll come back and have a conversation with council around whether or not we would be looking to reprioritise the funding that we've got and stage the development over a period of time, or whether or not the council is willing to add additional money to get the whole thing sorted at once. Okay. But we need to have that conversation with the community first.
Okay. And the survey actually talks, or the consultation document actually talks about an increased level of service, potential increased level of service in terms of having a changing shed there, or only a replacement of toilets?
It'll talk about all of those things. It'll talk about different options around the car park, different options around the location of the volleyball, which is identified in 2 locations there, and it will also incorporate different options around the toilet, but also the priority of where they actually want to spend. So we'll let them know, at the moment in the budget we've got X amount of money. But we've got all these projects and we can't do them all. So which is the priority for the community to be able to implement, and understandably, I'm sure most of the community will say, well, we want it all done straight away, all together, holistically, but we'll have to then come back and present that to the board and then council to see whether or not there's any change.
Okay. And does it come back here as well?
Yeah, it can absolutely come back here. Yep. Okay. No problem. Yeah, remember, our budgets for next annual plan also are put together by staff in November, and then they go out to councils over the Christmas period as draft budgets. The consultation is going to take a couple of months to do and actually get that information back. So this is likely to inform the next annual plan rather than the one we're in at the moment in terms of that financial impact.
Fabulous. Right. Does anybody else have questions? Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was just focused on something else. So just remind me, I called the latter end of a consultation. So it's consulting on the plan with the board. Is it board or boards or is it just the Woody and Sefton board?
So we've been to all the boards,
Yes.
and we've actually talked to all the boards around what's happening in their area in terms of the replacement program that we have. All of them are happy, apart from Woody and Sefton, who have said, look, we just really want this Waikaku toilet to be done sooner because it's our busiest beach. The level of service provided by that toilet isn't up to the right standard. But there's a lot of issues that are there at the moment. The toilet doesn't actually get replaced in our budgets until 2053, so it's a long way away. But we do have money in the budget to upgrade the car park and do some other things down there. So we'll be consulting and saying, this is the budget that we have. The other budget comes in way down here. What's your priority? And I think some people in the community might say, you know what, the gravel car park, which is there, the overflow car park, we can still use the overflow car park. Having that as a beautiful concrete asphalt car park is ideal, but we'd prefer that we have changing rooms and toilet facilities upgraded in the short term, and then maybe long term and later down the track, when the money becomes available for the toilet, we can look at doing the car park. But we need to go to the community and understand what their priorities are at the moment,
And so
and
we're
then come
going,
back to council.
we're going out shortly, is that correct? When are we heading out?
I'll come back to you on the timeline.
Yeah, we've got permission already from Woody and Sefton to go out. I think we're just getting the actual consultation material organised right now. I don't think it was actually too far away.
The car park, just remind me, when is that budgeted to be?
That's
replaced?
budgeted. We've got money in this financial year.
And if, how much, just remind me of the amount, I'm just looking through the list now. This is how much is budgeted, or do we know what it would cost to replace the toilet?
The replacement budget, the depreciated amount that we'll have for the toilet won't be enough for the toilet, because that toilet would have been depreciated quite some time ago, I imagine. So we would have, but we do have a replacement fund at the moment, which has the replacement of a public toilet like this every 2 years, and the budget for that every 2 years is $300,000 now.
And the car park is how much?
It's 240,000.
So if they chose to do the the toilet as opposed to the car park, we're probably not too far away in terms of money to be able to, but we can't do both without coming back to council and saying either we move some other things around, which would be impacting on some of the other boards, or we put additional funding in. But it'd be interesting to talk to the community first and get their opinions on what they see as being priority in their side.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It was raised during the annual plan submissions, and I did say at the end of it, I think we need to have a joint meeting with the board and council around understanding where we're both at, right? But it was raised by Shona, the chair, around the condition of the present toilet, and if I recall correctly, and it wasn't very flattering remark, have we undertaken a condition assessment, and what would the opinion of staff be on that, please?
Structure.
Probably just come for the table grant for the benefit of the microphone. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Good waste of good time moment.
Yeah, no thanks. So the condition of the toilet, it's actually in a fair condition, so that's why it's as far out as 2053. Structurally it's okay. The main concern from the community board was really around the accessibility and I guess the growth and use of Waikaku. At the point in time that the toilet was built, obviously it sort of suited the needs that there were at the time, but and that's the difficulty with it compared with some of the other loos that we've got, such as Woody and Beach Domain, the one that we recently upgraded with the tourism infrastructure funding in the middle of Wood End as well. This toilet's actually structurally fit for purpose.
So structurally, it was the aesthetics internally, I think, that was being referred to. What is this? Have we looked at the assessment? Have we assessed that against that? And for example, an upgrade, given the age and other issues, is an upgrade being considered if it's needed? I haven't been in there for quite a while myself, and I'd be just interested to know.
Yep.
And look, you don't have to answer that now. If you could come back to us.
I go on it reasonably regularly. I use the showers on the outside of it reasonably regularly. Like Grant said, compared to many of the toilets we have in the district, it's actually pretty good. However, standards around what people expect in terms of public toilets have lifted dramatically. So if you compare it with the lower end stock we've got, it's reasonably good. If you compare it to a new toilet that we've built, it's vastly different. We do get lots of feedback from both visitors to our district and from members of our community who visit Waikuku, that with so many people going there and with that being our most popular beach, we really need to lift the standard of what we're providing there. A lot of that is also accessibility, which we are resolving anyway, and that's just actually, can you get into them? Can you use them? They're not accessible in terms of today's standards, but they are more accessible than the likes of Wooding Beach. There's actually a cutout at Wooding Beach in the door, because as you open the door, the toilet's actually too big, and you have to cut out a bit of the door to get the door open and closed. There's no way you ever get a wheelchair in it or be able to use it. So it's actually not too bad in terms of our overall stock, but does it meet the expected level of service that the community are wanting in that location? Absolutely not.
Would it be possible to have a memo at some stage to us around the condition of it and what it might cost to upgrade and bring, if the building is, let's say, fit for till 2053, what would it cost to upgrade it versus replace it? I think that would be beneficial for us to know, so that when we are having the conversation with the board, we can do that on an informed basis. That would be my suggestion, Mr. Chair.
Are we able to do that, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And if the community came back to us and told us that they the toilet is their main priority, we would have to go and do that work anyway. We would still have to go away and go, okay, if the toilet's your main priority, what can we do with the current toilet in terms of a renovation, or is it more economically feasible to knock it down and actually start again? So we'd have to do the cost benefit analysis of that. But equally, we can go down there today, and you can always do a paint job. You can always replace seats and things like that to lift the level of service reasonably cheaply. So we can come back to you with that immediate information about the current state of the toilet. We can take some photos and say, look, to give it a little bit of a lift, this is what it costs. To do a renovation, this is what it would cost, and these are the pros and cons of doing that versus this is what it actually costs to build something which is going to be entirely fit for purpose. Similar to, I'd suggest that the Pegasus Beach toilet would be one that you would identify as being fit for purpose.
I'm mindful that we're almost just focusing on one area, and really we should be looking at the whole thing. Would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
Well, I think one of the queries or one of the concerns at Waikuku Beach is that there's no room for changing, for people and with children changing as part of the toilet facility. So I think that needs to have a major consideration along the way.
So it looks like that's good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just really following on from that, and again, sorry, focusing on the one thing. Recently we, in Waimakariri, had an issue like that with that toilet block there, and basically we got it zhushed up to make it, to jolly it through until it was up for replacement. And I do wonder if we could perhaps meet them halfway and just regrade and re-gravel the car park, and if we could also have an option that has both, so we can actually do the maintenance required to make the car park usable, as well as some upgrades, and maybe if it's possible to move walls or anything, accessibility wise or anything in that building without doing a new one, because I am mindful that they are $250,000 to $300,000, and like you said, they're not as nice as some of the others, but nonetheless, they do the job. But just if there's a cake and eat it too option that we can have until the 20th.
So if we were to summarise, effectively we're going to have a report coming back anyway to give us an update in terms of the quality of the current situation and to see as to whether or not it can be zhushed up. Is that how I understand it?
Yeah. Yep, we'll bring a memo back in the real short term, which says that this is what it costs to just do a little bit of a tickle.
Yep.
There is a submission in the annual plan also, so there's the ability to provide a recommendation, which I think we've got in there to respond to that as well. But we, unless the committee feels otherwise, we'll continue with the consultation with the community to seek their views around what their priority is for the current budget that we've got.
Thank you.
Sorry, just two other. Just remind me, tennis courts are not in this particular program here, is it correct?
We do have one tennis court, which is in our hard surface. It's called our hard surface renewals budget, and I believe that we asked for additional funding, which is in the budget either this year or next year for Sefton specifically. That's the one. No, Swananoa. Sorry, Swananoa. All the rest of them were done and are actually in a really good standard.
Not according to residents in the Hoka, who certainly made a submission.
We've got money for a Hoka, because I just saw some correspondence about that, either next year or the year after. We've got the replacement funding for a Hoka coming on board, so that's imminent.
Just remind me, some years ago, when I first came onto council, tennis courts they weren't funded, and so we put aside funding every year so there was all over a period of 3 years, and so there was a revolving cycle of them being upgraded. Is that still the way we're approaching it?
Yes and no. So the hard surface renewals now incorporate some other hard surfaces that we have. We had a fund, and we spent primarily what was in that fund on upgrading most of those over about a 5-year period, about probably 5 or 6 years ago. And then when we upgraded them, we identified the appropriate replacement cycle for each of those tennis courts and put in to the hard surface renewal budget the appropriate amount to be able to upgrade those on a regular basis. There is a difference in a lot of the standard of some of those tennis courts as well. The likes of Warren Reserve at the moment, as one, Lees Valley as an example. We did some stuff to those, but they are at a different standard than the likes of Swananoa and a Hoka. But yes, there is budget ongoing getting pumped into tennis courts. It's probably our skate parks, which is the area we don't have a very specific replacement budget for. And while the skate parks we have are actually in really good quality in terms of the condition of the asset, the way in which people are utilising skate parks has significantly changed, and you'll see some annual plan submissions around the likes of Waikuku, and you've seen them around the likes of Woodend in the past, where the ramps are just too steep for people these days, and we need to look at how we replace those over time to make sure they're fit for purpose as well. So, correct me if I'm wrong.
The only thing is, Hoka did get pushed out because we pushed out some of the program through our response to COVID, so that's actually in 2032.
Hoka.
But there's there was submission points on that, so I think for next week particularly, I'd welcome knowing what actually is the issue that they're raising, and can that be resolved in the interim? Is there an interim? Because they were looking at the photos that were presented, it looked like there was some. It didn't look good from the photos, but I'd personally like to see that fact checked. And if we've got to consider the program again, and where that's prioritised, that might be something for us to focus on, to think about. Well, it will be something for us to think about. The other is the Sefton domain. I'd like you tell me where we're at presently with that, please. I know that so the wastewater upgrades happened, is that correct? So it's now operational with toilets out there?
Yep, so that's all operational. We had a slight hiccup with the water supply, which was a completely separate asset issue the week before Anzac, but thankfully that was rectified, so that went okay. In terms of the building itself, we're still meeting with the group. It's fair to say that it is quite a challenging sum of money for them to raise. We're still working through the sale of the library land, and it's kind of reached some milestones, but there seems to be just a little bit of a delay there with the lawyer at their end. And it's really a case of how much they can capitalise on what their existing assets are. They do have the lease in place through the Woodend Sefton Community Board for Sefton Domain itself, so it's really a case of just continuing to work with that group. But as I say, it is a challenge for them to raise the amount of money that they actually need to raise.
Yeah, the funding gap between what we would require to be able to build something on Sefton Domain to meet the needs of that community and what we have at the moment, it just, in the current financial climate that we're in, seems to be getting bigger rather than smaller, regardless of the amount of effort being put in by the community and by staff. And that's a reality for all of our community facilities in the district, and those that own those community facilities are really feeling the struggle with the exit of Rata and the exit of a lot of other philanthropic funds. It is a real challenge at the moment. So that's going to be an issue for Southbrook, it's going to be an issue for Sefton, it's an issue for Kendall Park, it's an issue for a number of our different facility providers at the moment, and likely going to be something which we present as part of the next long-term plan for council at the time, to be able to consider what involvement the wider community has in funding those, based on where we're at the moment as a country economically.
Is that on the radar for Sefton for the long-term plan?
Well, they've got $200,000 which council's allocated them at the moment. We, as part of every long-term plan, come back with an assessment of all of the strategies that we have, and one of those is our community facilities network plan. And so we will be coming back and identifying again the priorities for that network plan, and where we believe council should be providing, it's limited ratepayer funding to be able to give the best bang for buck for those community facilities. Equally, we're going to continue to work with each of those groups to fundraise as much as we possibly can, and look at innovative ways of trying to build facilities cheaper and more effectively. So we're doing all of that work, but yes, for the long-term plan, Sefton will come back, Southbrook will come back, all of those facilities will come back as part of that wider strategy. But that's also our sporting facility infrastructure spend, and all of the different replacement program spends which are on here as well, go through that process of having a strategy review, population, numbers of use, community trends, all those sorts of things.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. Any other questions, folks? Who would like to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Blackie. Secondly, would you like to speak?
Not really. I'll move A to G, and it's been comprehensively presented in the report, and we've discussed the Dunnies to death, and I'm happy with it.
Thank you, Councillor Blackie. Seconder, Dan.
That's all right to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I support the report, and thank you to the staff for the presentation of it. It's good to understand a bit more detail around where our project program is at and where our renewals, etc. are sitting, and thank you Duncan and Grant for providing the explanations. I think we've got some work to do with the William Sefton board, and indicated that at the annual plan around just ensuring that there is perhaps a shared understanding of what the priorities are, and also an understanding of the fiscal constraints that we each act in the William Sefton board particularly. We're about to hopefully embark on a new community centre for Pegasus, which has long been identified and is, to me, a priority. We'll just have to see where the tenders come in, and hopefully it meets our expectations of where that needs to be, but that's an important investment. I'm really interested to see what we do with Waikuku Beach toilet block, because after hearing that feedback, I just want to understand, as Nikki was indicating, a zhu-sharp approach and ensuring compliance versus what it might cost to replace. And then is the priority, when we're discussing with our community around upgrading car parks or a toilet block, and I've personally got an open mind in there, maybe a compromise that can be achieved, and that's something we need to bear in mind. I really have huge sympathy for the Sefton community. I think as a council we haven't spent a great deal in that community, in my personal opinion. And over the time that I've certainly been on council, and I think it's time, they're coming up where I think we are going to have to bite the bullet and help them with that facility out there. How we do it, how we prioritise, I think expectations about what the current proposed pavilion might look like versus one that may fit a more fiscally managed expectation are things that we're going to need to consider. But I think they've done a lot out there themselves to help themselves. They've got money aside, but they're facing a battle out there of a climate that is not easy to raise money in. It just simply isn't. With the rata withdrawing, lotteries is incredibly difficult to get money from in the best of times, and in the philanthropic world it's not easy either. And they've got a facility next to the current Sefton Hall, and obviously with the library in progress for sale, they are trying. And I think, in my view, that's the one that logically sits out there as something that we need to consider the timing and work with them around that. Obviously Kendall, Southbrook and others are sitting, Southbrook's sitting in our LTP presently. Kendall's another matter, which there are some conditions in there that aren't ideal either. So it's getting to a time where we're just going to have to really consider it when we bite the bullet on these and make some big decisions, which aren't easy in the current fiscal climate, but we can't let the assets simply deteriorate either, and neither can we with Sefton, I think, and all hand on our hearts say that you're going to have to sit out there and wait for another 10, 20 years, because that's what it's looking like at the moment. I think we need to give them a bit more hope than that and see what we can do to bring that, if we can, to bring that forward soon.
Thank you, Mayor Dan. I couldn't agree more. Certainly in terms of the expectations of our community, we're trying to do the very, very best we can, and thank you very much for bringing this report to us. It must be very, very difficult to try and prioritise all these different projects throughout the community. Everybody wants everything in their patch, but we've only got a certain amount of money. I look at the likes of Kaipui High in terms of their gymnasium was going to be very small, being funded by the Education Department, and through the council was able to throw some additional funding, and that made a big difference to that particular school. And I'm certain that Sefton, if we were also to do the same and help them out in time to come, to actually build a reasonable facility for their community, would be certainly will be well appreciated. Councillor Blackie, would you like to have a right of reply?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, say no. It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Duncan, for standing in for Justin. Thank you, Grant. Moving on to 5.3. Libraries. We've got Luke. Welcome, Luke.
Kia ora koutou. I hope you're all doing well. It's my pleasure to present our libraries report. I will take it as read, but I will bring your attention to all items within. Fortunately, I don't have an update on DIY spas, but I will come back to when it was pitched to me by a team, I did think it might have been our first collaboration with Aquatic, so we'll keep our options open there, but I don't want any books getting wet. I will move to 4.1, so our participation in the DigiCoach National Pilot Project, which is a bit of a tongue twister, but effectively we were invited by Digital Inclusion Alliance Aotearoa, who we've had a relationship with for a very long time, to participate in a national pilot which was funded by MSD, and it placed local job seekers into libraries to provide training for mostly our older community around digital skills, advice with their devices, how to transact safely online, internet banking, that sort of space is immense for us and requires a huge amount of resource. So we welcome the opportunity for us to participate. It's been a discussion within public libraries for a long time around partnerships, potential partnerships with MSD, given that huge bulk of what we do is in navigating central government services. So particularly our older community find it very, very hard to navigate online services. So we're doing quite a lot of that work with central government in that space. So to date, some of that work hasn't come to fruition. So you were very, very keen when this pilot was announced that we would take part. So we collaborated with Hamilton City Council, Ashburton Council as well. So good opportunity for us, particularly to collaborate with Ashburton, who we've got a close relationship with our library network, through Selwyn and also Huranui in Christchurch City, but it was a good opportunity for us to come together with Ashburton as well. We've responded to about 300 queries so far of our DigiCoaches. So our DigiCoaches have been spending 20 hours a week at Rangiora Library. They've got a huge amount out of it personally as well, and that's been quite positive for staff to sort of witness their growth as well. So there's just a quick quote from one of the DigiCoaches here. He said, "In my role, I've watched many retired people struggle with digital technologies and the isolation that comes with being unable to transact online. It's been great getting to know our community and learning where they've come from. I've learned from them and I've learned a lot from them." So both our DigiCoaches had been in physical, trades, practical trades, and had sort of slipped through the cracks a bit. Some work options hadn't really panned out for them. So they've really enjoyed actually getting to know our community, and through the process they've built a lot of soft skills, social skills, being able to sit down and meet, talk to someone that they've never met before and build that connection has really boosted their skill set. And so we're currently hoping that there is a second tranche of this work. MSD actually haven't confirmed yet whether it will be funded for a second tranche, and it's wrapping up next week. So irrespective, we've been doing a bit of work with both of our local DigiCoaches to try and connect them through the Mayor's Task Force of Job and through other options available to them.
Can I ask a question, just because you're wanting to go on, aren't you, to other things?
I am, absolutely.
Do you want us to answer or ask any questions of, say, the DigiCoaches to start with? Because you've got quite a substantial report. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If the question is burning, then
well, only let's stick it with Digi to start with. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what you wanted?
If we can. Yeah, on Digi.
Yeah, sorry. Councillor Fulton, would you like to ask a question?
Thanks, Jim. Must have been watching. Question is online verification services. I imagine the DigiCoaches could play a role in helping people. I know someone very close to me, a couple who struggling with their MyIR. I mean, it was a filthy process. It was a very difficult process to verify your own identity for filling out a form. And increasingly, is there any way, I think this comes into MSD, Inland Revenue, all these government agencies. Are you getting the feedback that people are absolutely stuck? They can't even transact their banking, they can't transact, prove who they are,
Yeah, absolutely.
Be interested in the feedback that we get from this sort of thing, because they are essential services that people can't.
Yeah, I've had people personally call me to express their gratitude for our staff, spending time with them. We've through the DIAA who we've partnered with this program, we offer a skills curriculum, so people can actually come and sit down and learn those skills in a class-based setting. And for some people, they actually need that help.
Yeah.
It is a growing area of our business.
Yeah, no, so just that, but specifically verification where you can't move on with your life, you can't do any government interaction without it because it's all online. So just thank you.
So you've had 300 interactions in the small amount of time that you've run the pilot loop. So what about the other libraries, the likes of Oxford and Kaiapoi? Where do you see this going to in terms of the need that's out there?
We've operated in the space for quite a long time, and to some extent it's BAU for us. As libraries, as evolving spaces mean that we're constantly context switching in the work that we do. So it might be helping people with books, but this is a huge component of what we do, and I'm incredibly fortunate to have a team of people that are very, very dedicated, and we have offered these services at Oxford and Kaiapoi for some time. This is the first time that we've offered an instruction setting like this delivered by external. So those two DigiCoaches actually were trained by us, and what we know the sorts of inquiries that we get and those themes. So it's very much local people delivering those skills to the local community.
But does it look like it's actually highlighted it even more because you've advertised the fact that there's a DigiCoach available?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Is there any other, so what if MSD don't fund going past the pilot? What's your thoughts with regard to that?
There are potentially some options for us to continue on with it using the flexi wage program with a boost from MSD. They actually, one of the digi coaches is so keen to continue with us. He's offered to work voluntarily while he finds a job, which is very generous. Our staff will continue to work alongside them and mentor with them.
That is fantastic. All right. Are there any questions further about the Digi site? All right. Sorry about the interruption there.
Very enthusiastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so just on to 4.2, so Trigger Inch Memorial Library, shelving replacement and refurbishment work. So that work was completed in March when we closed for a fortnight. We ended up using pretty much the entire time, just given the the significant undertaking, moving 85,000 items and clearing it out and then bringing in the new shelving and then everything being unpacked again. We had a really overwhelmingly positive response to that work. So when we opened our doors on the Monday, we were absolutely swamped, and we had 6,000 visitors through in that reopening week, including a couple of days where visitation exceeded, was well over 1,000 people. And just looking at some of our stats, we really doubled our book issuing sort of over the period after that. So we issued about 10,000 books in that first week. So yeah, we were very, very happy with that. Of course, it's a great balancing act. Having been involved in a fair few refits in my time, you're not going to get everything 100% right for all of the community, and we took some of that feedback on board. But for the most part, it was overwhelmingly positive, and we're quite proud of what was achieved in that time. And I think that what we've done will see us through until we get a new facility. We haven't solved all of our issues. We're still space is very much at a premium. They keep continuing to come, and we welcome them accordingly. But the space, comfort levels can vary just by nature of how many people we're welcoming through the space. I'll also briefly mention that during the time we utilised the mobile community hub vehicle, and that's something that we want to continue to do in the future, to use that. So we had a pop-up library on site so people could keep coming and interacting with us each day while we were closed, and they picked up their holds and they read the newspaper. We had some pretty decent weather over that time. They sat out in the sun, and it was quite relaxing. A couple of older members of the community asked me if I could afford them a beverage, but not quite moving into that space just yet. But the point was raised in the previous report about the Pegasus Community Centre, and using that mobile community hub and that mobile community library. That's one way that we can continue to connect with our outlying communities, because we know that there are people that travel reasonable distances to come to Rangiora as a destination library, including from Sefton and outlying communities. So utilising that vehicle is one way that we can continue to connect with them. Just finally, I want to bring attention to the customer survey results. So we conducted that between the 18th of November last year and the 31st of January this year. We had a huge amount of data to pour over for this one. I guess ultimately higher visitation means higher engagement, and more people were keen to share their thoughts with us. We had 581 people respond, which is an increase of over 200 responses on the previous year. I mean, the overall theme was that people generally indicated that they were receiving a high level of customer service. So when we asked, does staff make you feel welcome, 93% of people agreed. It also highlighted that there are multiple reasons why people come and spend time with us. While 93% come to borrow books, they're just reflecting the breadth of what we offer. 38% come to find information, 33% to visit an exhibition, 25% for programming and events, 22% for facilities, 17% for justice and peace, which that's a really vital partnership for us. For a very, very long time, our libraries have offered exhibition spaces in sort of integration of those experiences, which represent culturally, a huge amount of our communities, and they continue to enjoy those experiences. There was quite a bit around the opening hours, and we have committed to a formal assessment of our hours, which will be conducted in September. But when asked some preliminary questions on the topic of hours, 75 respondents requested that libraries be open for longer hours, and the common theme there was the weekend, where compared to some similar councils with similar library uptake, our hours are actually reasonably reduced. 23 respondents requested later evening hours, and we identified that it was mostly due to factors such as working the 9 to 5, and often working in the city, and requiring needing to commute, and not being able to visit the library within those operating hours. So absolutely happy to take questions.
Fabulous. Thank you, Luke. Who has the first question? Councillor Mallies.
Just going back to the refresh of the 100-inch Memorial Library, and I can't even find where I asked my question in here, so I was looking for it and got on the spot too fast. So I know that the children's area was certainly one of the big areas that they got refreshed. How is that being received? And I have to know, what did you do with the castle?
Yeah, so the castle was safely in storage, and it was actually able to be divided up into a couple of pieces. So at least half of it, I'm told, is going to the Hartley School of Performing Arts to be recycled for their upcoming Rapunzel production. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better outcome. They were quite happy with that. So no, it was able to be removed in sections, but was undamaged, thankfully. So yeah, it can be repurposed into the community. And in terms of the space, we held a Zumba session during school holidays to a packed children's area. So yeah, it's definitely doing its job, having that additional space. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I love it. The castle had a happy
I
didn't see you there, Councillor.
I'm a Pilates person, thank you.
So you're taking over pools, and now you're taking over
Tim
gyms.
does Pilates, but Dan is interested in taking up.
No, I'm suggesting it's a new call for Councillor Fulton, Zumba.
Hi, and last step we did.
Order, councillors. I need a gavel to bring you lot into order. Who has the first question, or the second question? I'll ask a question then. In terms of the storyboards, has there been any data collected, Luke, with regard to the number of people that have been using it? And secondly, is there an opportunity to replicate the storyboard walk in terms of, say, putting it in Pegasus, which is where the grebes can actually be found along that the wet area there in Pegasus?
We launched in school holidays alongside our green space colleagues, and we had 350 people show up to that opening event with Nicola Toki, the author and Forest and Bird CEO, and she did want to pass on her acknowledgement of council for the work that we've done in the book reserve. She was blown away by that as someone who grew up in this community. So we do have plans for subsequent story walks. I believe, Grant, do you know off the top of your head how many we have planned?
We're wanting to put one in each of the board areas, so I think we've still got about another 3 to go, but we'd be potentially looking at other storyboards, story walks as well, because there's quite a few that can activate, and they give good purpose for people to kind of integrate with the environment. So it meets a lot of our natural environment strategy goals too.
So these will be the same story or different stories in each one, or specific to each?
Different stories.
And does Nicola actually have other books that she has, or
I believe so.
utilising local artists or local authors? Is that right?
That would be our preference, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. In terms of the pop-up library, do you see that, in terms of an outreach to all of the other outlying areas, do you see that this is a benefit, or are you going to grow that even further, like say into Cust or other places?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we already do a considerable amount of outreach into our community, including visiting rest homes. So I think from an efficiency point of view and working with the resource that we have, it makes sense for us to sort of align whatever mobile library offering we go with the things that we're already doing and trying to sort of connect some things up with the community. We've identified that there are a few places that we could be at certain times to align with, coincide with markets and other things where there's high foot traffic.
I get the feeling you said, you prefaced that based on the current resources in terms of staffing. Do you imagine that if you're going to have to open longer, say on the weekends, you're going to have an increase in staffing? Is that right? And say if you did...
There will be an implication on our staff.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, given the increasing visitation, it is putting additional pressure on our existing budgets.
Okay.
Just given the volume of people that we're working with each day.
So we've got a population of 72,000, but 17,000 signed up for libraries, is that right? Members, 17,000 members?
I would have to look. I believe the active membership is slightly lower, but that doesn't tell the whole story because a lot of people come and transact with us that aren't members. So that figure is likely perhaps more in the sort of 20s, but in terms of active membership, that's 17,000.
And the last question I have, in terms of people coming to library for information, can you be more specific in terms of information? What are they asking for? Is it the digital side of it, help there, or is it information? What can I do in the town, or information about tourism? What sort of questions are they asking? Or the information that they're requiring from our libraries?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything really. So it is a little bit of local geography and tourism, and it's also helping them access information. It could be local heritage inquiries. It can be all sorts of things. So it probably does raise some points around our future surveys and trying to pull that data out of them.
Do you have the adequate resources in terms of providing the answers in terms of, say, the tourism side and what to do in the town? Do you have adequate information to give out?
We have information in our libraries, and we do refer them to the eyesight and to Enterprise North Canterbury and Eastern Canterbury.
All right, that's great. Thank you. Yep. Councillor
Not
Fulton.
Zumba related. Just navigation of people from the main street here to the library. A number of people come in here going, "Where's the library? How do I find the library?" I didn't really actually realise until I just looked at it this morning that we have a sign saying Pathway Library, but we're not terribly visible off the main street. Has that even been an issue with colleagues or something? Because a number of people I just come in and say, "Is this the library? Where do I find it?" And they tend to walk in here, I suppose is my question. Can it be any simpler or clearer for people? Because you'd be surprised how many people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do use sandwich boards. People know what we've got. We work pretty hard at using our advertising channels and Compass FM. We've got a big presence in the community.
Yeah. Just something to think about in terms of directions. Is it?
Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Community views, Luke. You've singled out Ngātauriri as likely to be affected, which I find. That's the question. Why have you singled out them as opposed to any other ratepayer to be specifically say they're likely to be affected by this report?
I think our reports generally state that they are likely to be affected just because of the breadth of what we offer, in particular a lot in our cultural environment. We have a huge amount around Matariki, around Māori language. We are those experiences are at the forefront of what we offer. It's something that it's in general. We generally say that they are affected. I'm more than happy to take other views on that.
It's a standard report template that has that section in it.
It very seldom mentions the iwi unless it's something like a road or a pipe or something that directly affects them. I would have thought that by definition, anything the library does would affect them. It didn't need to be specified, but it's all right.
Any other questions of Luke? We have a recommendation. Who would like to move? Thank you, Dan. Anybody second? All right, thank you, Councillor Mellon. Would you like to
I didn't
speak
think
to
it
the
was
motion? Yeah,
Just briefly, I think Luke's covered it all really well. And I know the digital aspect is something that does worry a number in our community, so that program I think is something that does have a lot of value. I am really proud of the work I think that the team have done in the library shelving replacement and refurbishment. I think it looks excellent, and I really enjoyed. Chris and I were walking down one day, and he said, "Why don't you come and have a look with me?" And we had a wee sneak peek, and could see all the activity that was going on in there, and also the careful consideration that had gone into the fact that the balloon, the castle, were no longer going to be viable to be there for safety reasons, and that it was time for a refresh. And that's what we've got, and newer things in there. I'm increasingly impressed with how well our library is used. It's not for people that are using it. I get it everywhere I go, just how valued it is. Well, our libraries in general are actually, not just Rangiora, but right across the board. But also the broadness of things that are available, including the gallery spaces that we have both in Rangiora and in Kaiapoi, especially the chamber gallery with the various concerts and other things. And I've got a number that I've noted that I'm looking to go to soon. The acoustics in that place are just extraordinary, they really are. And anyone that hasn't been to one of those concerts in the chamber gallery, I really highly recommend you look at that. There's cultural experience for you, Councillor Fulton. You can add it to your Pilates list. I mean it all seriousness. Come along with me one night. It's good fun. They really are, and they do attract a broad audience that goes along that enjoy those things that we have on offer. The survey work is really good to also note, it's good to note that we are still remaining strong in the views of the public, and there's some feedback that's also helpful for us to know around the signage. I think that is it's a point. I do occasionally direct people myself, but I think our library locations are pretty well known as the general impression I have from people, but always look at, what did you say, Nikki? One of those pop-up things or something or other.
One of those inflatable men that go like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if our signage bylaw would allow that, but
they are very. I think the place, our libraries are a tasteful entrances as well. They are, and they're an important place for people to feel welcome, and that they've got a safe place to go. Here, and I often hear that from people that perhaps have got some challenges in their life, and they do feel that our libraries is a place where they can go to learn and to feel that it's an inclusive space for them. I did note that our previous one of our previous library staff who came up on my Laura Cagle is incoming president of Lianza, came up on my LinkedIn feed, so congratulations to Laura.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Laura. Yeah, she'll appreciate that, thank you.
Thanks for your leadership, Luke, we appreciate it. And all the team that work for us.
Councillor Mellon.
Well, first of all, I must start by saying I love your work, always do. Our libraries are amazing, and every report is always just a new a new description of awesomeness. Really, I love what you've done with the DI double A, not to be confused with the DI single A. That is fantastic that you've actually managed to skill up to people from our local area to actually then skill up 200 people on how to use their digital devices. That's awesome. But there's so much fantastic stuff in there, but I just wanted to say that, in the ever-evolving landscape of what libraries do and should do, our libraries continue to be a touchstone of inclusion and engagement. Long may it continue, and thank you.
Thank you. If I may make comment, Luke, it never fails to amaze me the amount of work that you and the team seem to do in terms of making our library is a core service within the community. And I'm thrilled to hear that you're going to, or working, or trying to work on extending the Digi program so as to help everybody to become a little bit better at getting online and that sort of thing. And I would wonder as to how will expand when you extend it into the likes of Kaiapoi and Oxford, and if you even do the pop-up library situation, as to how many others will take advantage of that level of service. I'm also impressed that you're working across other departments, like the Green Space team, in terms of the storyboards. I think that's really, really impressive in terms of, again, getting people out and about, not just being in the library, getting out and about and making use of our green spaces and our wetlands and that sort of thing. I think that's really impressive that you're working across the departments, so congratulations there. Keep up the good work, pass on our thanks to the staff, and we look forward to seeing longer hours, particularly in the weekends, and hopefully you're able to negotiate that with the staff. But yeah, congratulations to you and the team, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, I'll pass it on.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to say any words? Right of reply, me? All right, we've got a recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against say no. Carried. Right, we'll now move on to, thank you, Luke. We'll now move on to Aquatics May report. We'll welcome Matt.
Thanks. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that once again, like a fine dessert, you've left me till last, so I appreciate that. We'll take the report as read, but just want to draw your eye to a number of the key points. As requested previously, we've provided a bit more of a deep dive into our attendance statistics, which are in the report there.
It's really good.
Overall facility attendance totals remain fairly consistent with previous years, with space and staff unlikely being the limiting factors there. The report notes that our facilities have achieved pool safe accreditation for another year, so that was following our annual assessment, which is a really good outcome. And notes the success of the recent Aqualand event, which saw 700 tickets sold for a bumper Anzac weekend. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Matt. In terms of your social media video that was online, you talked about the staff received thanks from, did that relate to the inflatable injury or the cause from the inflatable injury or something else?
That wasn't my finest moment, but I now have a bit more of a feeling for how those things work, so I will work on my social presence for next time. But that was in relation to a heart attack that we had, I'm going to say maybe just after Easter, possibly. A gentleman had a heart attack, well, experienced symptoms of a heart attack and was taken away to hospital, and then later came in on Monday and brought us flowers, brought the staff, I should say, flowers and a thank you note, which is just amazing. Like, we do not expect that in the least, and so that sort of acknowledgement went a really long way to the staff involved who, those situations can be very confronting to the individuals involved. So yeah, it was really cool.
So in terms of the staff, did the staff actually pick up that the person was actually having an issue?
So the individual was in the spa pool and had run something like 5 kilometres just before they came in, and so they actually experienced a blood pressure drop. Outwardly, there was signs of potentially a stroke. There was slurred words. The person started to pass out. The staff pulled them aside, followed our processes and procedures. We ended up closing the facility for a brief period just so that we could manage the space and the people involved. And obviously, when staff are responsible for those sorts of situations, it makes it difficult for them to supervise the remaining facility comfortably. So we closed for a brief period before reopening about an hour later, once we'd had a chance to check in with all the staff, make sure that they were all comfortable to proceed, call in additional staff and those sorts of things. So,
is this a protocol that you actually
yes, this was all perfectly as per our SOP. Yeah,
oh, that's impressive. I'm sorry to delve too far.
No.
In terms of the inflatables, did it actually increase the patronage to the pool at the time, or did it just remain constant in terms?
It's a little tricky to say because we've never run something similar to that. And to do so, we had to essentially take over the main pool. So I'm not sure if you've seen the photos there, but essentially we had to remove all our lane swimmers out and our aquarobics customers. We provided alternative space at Kaiapoi, obviously, with lane swimming available there, as well as running additional classes over at Kaiapoi. I imagine we would have been up overall, but it's hard to say whether some people were put off by the fact that we'd taken over the pool.
So in terms of the cost, did you actually charge them to enter the pool and then they were charged an additional sum, or how did it actually work?
That was all handled by Aqualand. So I believe the tickets were $20 or $19.99. Individuals purchased tickets to the event, and that got them entry into the pool. Generally, most of them didn't stay because 50 minutes running around on that Aqualand thing is absolutely exhausting, as I understand it. I didn't do it personally. We definitely covered our cost of the additional staffing that we put on, as well as the space hire that we normally would have charged. So.
And is it something that you propose to run again?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're working in with Mark, I believe it is Mark Holder from Aqualand. The fine balance to do is that you don't want to flood the market and do it every weekend, and then you end up going to all that work for nothing. But equally, they want to move it around, so they're looking at QE2 and some city council pools. I know they did Selwyn a wee while ago, Ashburton, and probably maybe that 6 to 9 months sort of that's possibly our sweet spot. So we're going to try it again in the very near future. Yeah,
because I'd imagine you target your low occupation or low number areas and go, oh, let's see if we can actually fill that with a
absolutely
program.
Yeah.
Is that would be the idea? Is that right?
Yeah.
Who else has a question? Thank you, Councillor Fulton.
Thank you. I just had a question about the usage and seasonality of the Oxford pools again. I had some feedback actually from one of our Oxford's Pearson Park advisory members, asked about the availability of programs and coaching. You can see here in the graphs how peaky it is with the programs from January to February. Absolutely, skyrockets, and then sort of drops off. Very little in between times, and I think actually the sign up for prepaid reflects that people sign up, for January, February. Is there a way we could smooth out the usage? And because it sounds like there's some demand there, but if we had the people to actually staff the lessons, and this was a sort of a silver fitness sort of aqua size class, I think we've had some problems getting people up there and being available to do it.
Yeah, so I don't want to say it's deceptive, but the numbers kind of identify that where our business comes from for programs is Learn to Swim. And so in that November, December period when the pool opens, that's largely the Oxford area school. I want to say, is it View Hill School? Is up that way as well? I think Cust comes into here, but I feel like there's one other school in that area that I can't remember the name of. Apologies, but there's West Eaton, yeah, correct, yeah. Those three kind of make up the bulk of those program numbers in the December, February. They obviously drop away over January because there's no school and no school classes over that period. However, again, I also take your point around the aquarobics classes. We were in discussions with quite simply, aquarobics tutors are unicorns and we're trying to capture them, but equally you have to have the numbers in the classes. And so one of the discussions we had was with the Sports Trust, whether we could get someone there. We thought we had it and then it didn't quite get over the line.
I've heard the same thing,
yeah.
Potentially work with
absolutely.
So.
I think that's going forward. We're going to start that a lot earlier and get that place, get that cemented in position so that from the get-go we're ready to go. It also fell apart over the Christmas time and it just we didn't manage to find a solution that would work both for us and the trust.
So you need the person, and then obviously they need to be trained and have the accreditation and make the hours work and all sorts of things.
Correct.
Okay. No, thank you. That's good.
Cool. Any other questions? We have a recommendation. Who would like to move? Thank you. Councillor Bryant, anybody like to second? Yep, thank you, Councillor Blakey. Would you like to say?
No, thank you.
No? I'd just like to say thank you for giving us a little bit of an update with regard to the medical emergency that your staff had to deal with. I want to congratulate you and the team for dealing with that, and it's really encouraging to hear that you've got that standing operating procedure in place. But also congratulations to the actual team member or the team members that actually dealt with it, very, very early and recognised that the risks there. People, if they have heart attacks, if they're not dealt with quickly, can then go the next stage, cardiac arrest. So congratulations to you and the team for dealing with that. And thank you very much for your report. So, what you would like to say? Thank you, Councillor Mellons.
Thanks, Matt, again, always good report from you. You guys do awesome work, you and your team, and I'd really like to acknowledge that. The pool safe accreditation, the fact that you have just continued to maintain that, that's fantastic work. I mean, that's the benchmark, and that's our pools, so well done with that. And I love the fact that you continually find innovative ways to bring people into the pool, like this collaboration with Aqualand. That's quite interesting, and yeah, I'd like to see whatever it is next that you come up with. So yeah, well done, thank you.
Thank you. Right, a reply? Okay. All right, we'll put the recommendation so to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, say no. Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt, for your time. Thank you for your team. Right, do we have any correspondence here? Correspondence? Portfolio updates we'll have from the first Green Space, Parks, Reserves and Sports Grounds from birthday boy, Councillor Al Blakey.
Thank you. No.
Don't you?
Oh, I think we should.
Start it off.
Okay, no particular order, just a list of stuff. Whites Road, in the quarry there in the lake, while the water levels were down, Green Space staff went in and did some reshaping of some of the steep cliffy drops that they didn't like, and also modified one of the islands, what becomes an island in the middle when the water's in there, and modified that into a nesting site, cleared a lot of the junk off it and out of it. Silver Stream Reserve, Kimberly and her team have been doing what we call the second restoration, which is planting bigger trees into the microclimate we've created, and also opening up areas to let light in to encourage secondary growth on the ground. So that's all going well. Ahoka Bush, Green Space have been working in there. I don't actually have the details of that. Do you know anything that they've been doing in there specifically?
No, I turned up to all the working bees,
yeah,
but other than that,
they've been working on it. Mapping. A PhD student has been in and has done a green space, a green mapping of Kaiapua, of Rangiora, which is complete, but we'll get the results of that through eventually. All to do with greening your cities and lowering temperatures and absorbing carbon and the whole 9 yards. They've done, Bex was telling me they've actually, the results of that are surprisingly good. I thought our towns were way below the amount of green that we're, Bex says that report says no, Rangiora is in good shape, but it did include parks and reserves and sports fields, which some of those figures with how green your town is may not. So they're going to take them out of the equation and see how good that is. Storyboards, we've covered that. The biodiversity contestable funds have been, the applications are in, both individuals and organisations, and the results of that will be coming through soon. Youth Council, I went last month to one of their day that Ruby talked about, and gave them a lecture on what Green Space does, which was reasonably well received, I think, and most of them had no idea, so that was a bit of good PR. Huria Reserve, everything's ticking along there. We've been approached by the MUBA project. They have to, as part of their resource consent, they have to provide a runoff, stormwater runoff area, and they've asked if they can run that across Bowler Street into our planting area, which the courier group have agreed with. Basically, we're going to turn it into a biota node, so it's a win-win for them and us. So that's in the pipeline. Woodend Food Forest, with Brent's tutelage and support, an organisation, the Woodend Food Forest kicked off. Pines Beach Food Forest kicked off. The planting day was Saturday, but and they got good turnout, and it's all underway and flourishing in its early days. Tikahaka Otuhatara, everything's settling down quite well there. We've got our new staff member started yesterday, and we're getting the place back on an even keel there. We ran the Orienteering Champs. I don't think I've reported on that since that happened 3 or 4 weeks ago. The New Zealand Champs through the park in there, and apart from being a very soggy weekend, it went well. And I think that's me. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions of Councillor Blackie? I'd like to certainly congratulate one of your staff members, that's Kelly, in terms of the work that she's done with regard to the Pines Beach Food Forest. She organised for the site to be safe by having trees removed, and she's organised planting up the back on the sand dunes with regard to involving Kaiapoi High students and RVED again today. She's really added a huge amount of value. She keeps everybody informed, so if you can pass on our thanks to her, she's done a great job. So let's hope we can produce some more. No other questions? All right, thank you. Councillor Bryan, you're going to be telling us all about community facilities, please.
Well, I won't be saying very much, Mr. Chair, because the Mayor mentioned a fair few earlier in the meeting, because of those submissions to the AP. And I didn't get a report from Mr. Brown, and no news is good news. So, there was nothing on my computer.
There might be a surprise for you. If you look at your emails right now, you might see something.
Oh, no, I'm not going to look at my emails.
There was nothing.
No, so but as I say, but one thing I did brief the community board on last week was a couple of weeks ago, the Southbrook Sports Club had a meeting. They've taken on a person that I worked with years ago, and Lisa McQueen. She is brilliant. And also Liz McClure, obviously from the community board, is on there as well. The reality is, and this was a submission from the community board, was that we're aiming too high at the 3.3. And so we're going to try and scale it back. So we're looking at other alternatives. AMP built their thing for, I think it was just over $1 million. It's a pavilion. But the big worry I've got, and I don't know how many of you saw the game on the weekend, Canada versus New Zealand, 27-all, and what a brilliant game of rugby. Women's rugby, or women's sport in general, is taking off. It's the change facilities that I'm most worried about, because you can't have men and, well, you can, but you can't have men and women sharing a shower. It just, so, well, it did actually happen at a Golden Oldies game when we got hit by a southerly storm, and the girls came in and they said, "We don't mind if you don't mind." So it did, but that is my worry, Mr. Chair, is yes, we can build a pavilion for $1 million, but we need change facilities. So it's a work in progress, and as I asked the board last week, don't give up on us. We're working. We've got 2 years yet. It might take 3, it might take more. Who knows? But don't give up on us. We're going to get there. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Good on you, Robbie, for leading that in terms of looking outside the box, particularly when we're struggling in terms of trying to be foodishly responsible. So well done for being
very efficient.
Yeah, well done. Questions from Councillor Mellings?
Yes, hey Robbie, just on the Southbrook facilities, it's the same sort of issue that we have with at Mandeville. You know, you can only have really one game going with the amount of locker rooms that we have, and you know they've looked at all different permutations, and eventually they kind of landed on the idea of potentially building a completely separate building for changing sheds and whatnot. Have you thought about that perhaps?
I've got
Because then, you know, then you can do the individual cubicles like they do with the at the main tower, for instance, and then you can actually accommodate.
Well, this will be the first Chris has heard about what I just said, and Grant will be the first he's heard. So we've got some work to do.
Well, it just might be another option to look at perhaps. And I mean, I don't know where we'll land with ours either, but yeah, it's something worth looking into perhaps. Maybe you boys can probably add a lot more information to that, but it's an option. So.
Thank you, Councillor Mellons. Any other questions of Councillor Bryan? I noticed, Councillor Bryan, that when I spent some time at Kendall Park, they were raising the issue that women under 15 weren't allowed to shower together. They actually had to be in closed cubicles and that sort of stuff. It makes it really difficult, doesn't it, to actually try and cope with these sort of criteria that we're supposed to be funding.
Well, I can't emphasise, women's sport is taking off, as it should. So we need to consider that going forward.
Thank you for that. So the next person is myself. I've already sent through a report to everybody anyway. The only other thing that I would add to it is that in terms of events, down by the river is actually having sell-out events every time he's putting on a music event at the likes of Pines Beach Hall. It's very difficult to actually get tickets now. He's increased the price so as to try and make some money out of the actual venture. But yeah, it looks like he's doing some amazing events, and I would encourage you to go along and actually attend one of his down by the river events. They're well worth going to. If there's any questions of myself with regard to the report, please fire away.
Very full report,
Very
Mr. Chair.
report.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to Waimakariri Arts and Culture, again from birthday boy Councillor Blake.
Thank you. Okay, on the arts side, all three committees, that's the right word, Waimak Art Council and WaiPat and the Waimak Art Collection Trust have all, with assistance and guidance from Mel, our facilitator, who's doing a great job. We've been overhauling all three of the protocol, paperwork, mission statement, you name it, which haven't been done since the war, basically, and getting things in place which you have to have now, like proper contracts with artists, which have never been in place. It's all been done on a wing and a prayer. So all the protocols for all three of those are in good shape now, mainly thanks to Mel. WaiPat, the subcommittee from WaiPat is working on the bridge, Kaiapoi Bridge design. They met yesterday and have got a preliminary expressions of interest is where they're up to, and they have chosen 2 artists, and now they go back to those 2 artists with a design options for them to come back with. So progressing pretty well with that on the timeline. Labels, the labels for the things in here, we finally found them, we finally sourced some, so in the corridor by next month, touch wood, all these paintings in here will have a label on artist and description of the painting. So we finally, I've been pushing that since last October, and we finally managed to get some action. Chamber Gallery concerts, Dan's mentioned those, they're proceeding well, and I agree, I recommend go listen to them, they're great. And down by the river, you've covered that off for me, so that's good too with Nigel. I think that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. In terms of the expressions of interest from the 2 artists that have been selected, is the criteria the likes of local?
They're both local.
Both local?
Yes.
That's fabulous.
Which way I think that was the intention, and whether it was or not, they're both local, and they're both. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention their names yet, but they both had extensive works in the area in the Waimak district.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions of Councillor Blackie? No, it appears to be none. We're moving on to a matter for information from the Kaiapoi Tuiiwi Community Board, Murphy Park, the concept plan. Are there any questions of that? No? Would anybody like to move? Right, thank you, Councillor Bryan. Councillor Mallings is seconding. Would you like to speak to it? No, thank you. Right, no right of reply, so we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against say no. So it's carried. We'll move on to questions. No urgent general business. So we'll now move into.
I think urgent general business should be
Urgent.
singing happy birthday.
Oh.
to this guy. What do you
Where's the
reckon?
cake? Where's the cake?
It's urgent
In the
general
fire
business.
brigade.
We then
It's not urgent or general.
we wish Councillor Al Blackie.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Al. Happy birthday to you. I wasn't so beautiful.
We'd set the sprinklers off if we set the candles up.
Yeah, job now.
We haven't got enough. We haven't got enough risk continuation.
Good on you for turning up on your birthday.
So we'll now move into the workshop.
He's gone very red.
Yeah. Congratulations, Al.
I'll give you away, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thanks. Probably. We welcome Jill. You're going to tell us about the Rathby Methodist Cemetery. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
no, I know.
Do you want to catch up next week, Rob?
Sometimes.
Welcome, Jill. It must be, is it your first time in front of the committee as well? Oh, right in the centre one.
Down that one.
Yeah. That's it, well done. Excellent. Well,
It is.
thank you, Jill.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Jill Borland, Princess Anna Childs, and pleased to be presenting to you today. Before I start, I'd just like to acknowledge Chrissy Taylor-Cord, who's actually done the research on this matter with Anna, and I'm presenting on her behalf today. So the purpose of this workshop is to seek the committee's direction, feedback and direction on the somewhat complex situation around the Rathby Methodist Cemetery. So the cemetery is located